notice and reinforce the acceptable behaviour. In terms of developing academic skills, we see giving children feedback on their performance as part and parcel of the teaching process. It is not an add-on luxury, it is just part of what we do in order to develop their skills. If we didn't give them any feedback, whether it be in written form or orally, we would not be surprised when they were demotivated. And can you imagine a situation where you never marked their work? You never gave them any feedback on their performance? You would not be at all surprised if that did damage to their learning, did damage to their motivation. Yet we are far less comfortable in terms of giving positive, motivating feedback on behaviour than we are in terms of giving positive, motivating feedback on the learning. Well, if it's right for learning, it must be right for behaviour as well. But I think as a culture, as a country, we are not very comfortable with commenting on people's learning, with giving and taking compliments. I find it quite difficult to take compliments. You might bear that in mind at the end of the day when you want to plastic days ring. I'll say, oh, it was nothing at all. Inside I'm going, no, yes. So I don't think I don't know what it is. Is it something to do with being British? Quite sure. I do know that when I taught in America, at the end of the first week, my boss said, "Good job, you did a good job this week." What? I'd been teaching for 6 years at that point, and that was the first time anybody had said anything positive to me. I mean, you might think, well, I can understand why that would be. But that was all right, you know, it wasn't bad. So, I mean, my first reaction was, you know, it's okay, I'm British, we don't go for that sort of thing where I come from. But my second reaction was, oh, I like that. That's nice. And I think we don't get very much of the noticing and reinforcing the positive. And of course, if we don't get it, it's much more difficult for us to use that system with the children. If this is the system that our behaviour is managed by, we're more likely to use that with the children. So when the children do what we want them to do in terms of behaviour and rules, we need to tell them they've done it. You know, it doesn't have to be you know, kind of Joyce Grenfell or anything. It doesn't have to be sort of, you know, you don't have to feel sick at doing it. You can make it sound very natural. There's nothing straightforward about it. It's not just a simple matter of walking around the classroom and saying, you know, good, well done, excellent, that's fine, marvellous. It's a complicated business, giving feedback, just as it is in terms of giving feedback about academic performance. You know, you vary. You know that there are some kids that like this kind of feedback. Others, if you said to them, you know, in front of the group, that's absolutely super, Stephen, marvellous piece of work. You know, I mean, they'd spend the next, you know, hour trying to prove that that wasn't absolutely marvellous. You would have seriously affected their view of themselves. It would take some coping with. So I don't want to get into this too much at this point in time, but it's not just a simple, straightforward business. But I think the principle is that if you want to encourage or motivate a particular sort of behaviour, whether it be academic or social, whatever you want to call it, you've got to give kids feedback on it. You've got to tell them how they're doing. We can't afford to do what we normally do, which is just leave the good behaviour alone and just expect. You know, people say, well, why should I tell them they've done a good job for something that they should be doing anyway? Well, it's the same applies to you. You're supposed to do your job. Does that mean that you don't want any feedback on whether you're doing well or not? I doubt it. Number 4, mark the limits of unacceptable behaviour. So just in case by this point you were starting to panic and think, well, what is this positive behaviour? It's about being nice to kids and they'll be nice to you. Let me reassure you that there is a place for punishment in the positive behaviour approach. There is a place for responding to their misbehaviour. Critical. Absolutely critical. Because the way you respond to their misbehaviour determines whether it's a learning experience for them, a positive experience, or one that doesn't help at all, or actually even increases the misbehaviour. But if we do it right, let's call it punishment for the... If we do our punishment right, I'll redefine that term later on when we come more to the practicalities. But if we get it right, they focus on their behaviour. If we get it wrong, they focus on our behaviour. If they focus on our behaviour, that means they're not going to change their behaviour. But just at this stage, let me reassure you, if you needed any reassuring, that positive behaviour is not just about being nice to kids and ignoring their misbehaviour when it happens. It's about telling them what they've done when they've done it, but it's also giving them good feedback, effective feedback, responding effectively when they've done something wrong.